Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
It's not nice. What do you got for us today, you big giant meanie?
Okay, you oversensitive fruit bat.
What?
Today we're going to the 1980s-ish, to the state where their official bird is the lark bunting, or the home of the cheeseburger. Any guesses?
I don't know. Wisconsin?
Did you just Google it?
No?
Or are you just saying Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Are you trying to Google it?
No. I don't know what else.
Okay, I'll give you another one. Dr. Quinn.
Oh, Colorado.
There you go.
Colorado Springs. You've been sick for a real long time.
Not specific to this city, but we're headed to Colorado.
And for those that don't understand our giggles, we done been watching a show from our
Dr.
childhood.
Quinn.
I don't recommend.
No.
I don't recommend going back and
Don't
watching
do it.
anything from your childhood, especially Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. It's awful. It's an awful, awful thing to go back and watch. And I can just say, if you go back and watch it, I am absolutely floored every time they mention whores, prostitutes, or anything of that nature, or men lacking inspiration, meaning their penises not being hard. And then it says that it's rated for ages 7 and up. Horrified
Anyway.
every time. Anyway, yes, continue.
We're going to be in Colorado. That's my point.
Going to Colorado to see Dr. Quinn. Got it.
Anyway, we're going to start off in the wee hours of July 28th, 1980, when an officer is just doing his normal duties.
Eating a donut.
Notices a man in waist-high weeds in like a field just off the road. So naturally he stops because, again, this is the wee hours of the morning. So he's like, "Hey, feller, what you doing?" And the guy's like, "Just out for a stroll," to which the officer's kind of like, typically people don't just stroll around next to a road in the weeds. So he'll ask the dude for his ID and information just to kind of, he doesn't get good feelings for this situation. So he does, and the man gives him his ID willingly, and the officer confirms who he says he is. His name is Kenyon Battles.
Does he battle the officer?
I just realized I don't know how to say his last name. Kenyon Battles Tolerton. The officer, again, he verifies who he is and then has no reason to continue this line of questioning. So
Was he stashing a body in the tall grass?
He lets him continue about his stroll, and Kenyon goes on his way.
Was this going to be one of the ones where they use like the farm equipment and then they find the body? Those are always gross.
Okay, anyway, but something just still didn't feel right to the officer as Kenyon walks off and disappears out of sight. So the officer decides to go check out where he originally saw where Kenyon was. So he wanders into the weeds to see what the man could have been up to. He turns on his flashlight, he scans the area left and right, and then he's hit with the unmistakable stench of death.
I called it.
And then that's when his flashlight falls on the very decomposed, partially clothed body of a young woman.
Ew, was he committing necrophilia? Was he out there doing the body?
You have problems.
Really?
She would later be identified as 20-year-old Donna Wall. She had disappeared 9 days before from her work after her shift as a bartender at the Bullfighter restaurant in Denver.
Was she in a bag or anything? Or she was
out.
Yeah, you're not going to convince me he wasn't playing with her parts.
Okay.
He was visiting the corpse. Because how do you carry a decomposing body and not get the goo of their decomposition on you? Which the officer would have not only seen, but smelled while he was IDing the guy.
Maybe he was just coming back to see if she'd been found yet. I don't know.
He's playing with her parts.
But not only that, but 22-year-old Donna lived across the street from Kenyon, who's 24 years old. Now, what's even crazier than the fact that this officer had good gut instincts and figured that feller didn't need to be over there, and it seemed suspicious. And then it happened to be the lady who's dead lives across from the feller he was talking to. Kenyon is on probation for an abduction charge he committed in 1976, which, if you're not good at the math, is 4 years earlier than this scenario right now.
And he's out?
He was on probation.
But he's not in jail. He should be in jail.
So what are you saying? He's out? Yeah, he was on probation for an abduction.
That was my shock, lady. He should have still been in jail. He kidnapped somebody
in jail.
and then
he was never in jail. He got probation.
That's it? For kidnapping?
I didn't say parole. He was probation. He got probation.
Okay, well, just so you know, you get probation getting out of jail too.
Well, I'm telling you, he didn't do jail.
That's crazy.
You're going to have to edit that out because I don't think that's the case. I haven't read this case in 2 weeks, so I think he does go to jail, but we'll have to find out together.
I'm not editing that out then, because you just did the whole we'll find out together.
You're ridiculous. Anyway, so mind you, he's on probation, may or may not have done jail time from 4 years earlier. Now, mind you, this is when Kenyon lived in Ohio. So it's 9 p.m. on a Thursday night when Janelle Shepard walks out of a shopping mall and is right near her car when a feller tells her she has a flat tire. And like most anyone would do, she turns or goes to like lean to look at her car tire, but it's not flat. And then right when she pops her head up, the man that told her she had a flat has a gun right in her face. He tells her to get in the car. She gets in. He gets in the passenger seat. He screams for her to step on it. Fortunately, there's this crazy-ass Good Samaritan, Gerald Husky, that sees all this taking place and is also leaving the store with his family when he sees this feller with the gun in his hand and forcing this lady into the car. Now, I say he's a crazy-ass, amazing Good Samaritan because Gerald
chases him.
Well, he grabs this toy cork pistol that he had taken from one of his sons earlier that night, runs over to the girl's car, jumps on the running boards, and screams for the lady to stop the car. He points the cork gun at the guy and says, "Police, get out of the car!"
Was he police?
No.
Oh.
Which I was like, this is wild. He had a cork gun. This feller has a real gun.
And he's impersonating a cop?
I think that's the smallest part of this story to focus on. But anyway, so he's clinging to the car, telling him to get out of the car. The car comes to a screeching stop. Gerald drags Kenyon out of the car. Naturally, he would be arrested and plead guilty for felonious assault and kidnapping and be sentenced to 2 to 15 years.
He done did go to jail.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Mainly because he's released after 2 months.
Oh!
Because that's practically 2 years, and I figure they must do like dog years in prison time. And 2 to 15 means 2 months rather than 2 years.
Oh,
Somebody got it confused who does the paperwork, and that feller might have been really excited to be like, wow, 60 days, that's it?
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
God only knows what would have happened to her if it weren't for him, for crazy-ass Husky man.
Right. Well, and also, Kenyon is only 20 years old, so I was like, I don't even understand, not to say only old men and creepers should be the ones kidnapping people, but I would think a 20-year-old young man wouldn't be doing the kidnapping.
I guess.
But
you done did lots of cases where the young men have done the kidnapping.
I know. I would have figured.
My brain immediately flashed to your 14-year-old that kidnapped and murdered and raped his math teacher.
No. Yeah. I guess.
Anyway.
Well, I thought it was wild that he got out after 2 months, but then I also thought it was crazy he heads back to his work, which I did
What?
They just let him come back? But all right, whatever. It's the 70s. Things were crazy.
I guess he was only gone for 2 months. It must not have been too serious. They let him out.
He heads back to work. They just thought he had a real bad head cold.
They were really desperate for employees, is what it was. He was willing to come back.
Well,
what did he do?
I don't know, Andrea. Apparently kidnaps people professionally. Although he's not very good at his job. But he heads back to work and is on supervised probation. And after 3 years, so fast forward to 1979, and him not getting into any trouble, they decide to allow him to move to Colorado because he wanted to do that. Probably for some great reason. Now, they said, but you're still on probation, so you're just going to have to check in by either the phone or the mail.
What?
Which I thought was wild, too, because I was like, what? What?
I thought it like transferred to the new county. Like the new probation officers would pick that up.
No, apparently he was allowed to move out of state as long as he kept in touch. He could write.
Did he send them Christmas cards?
I don't know what the requirements for that is. You can research that in your own time.
I'm not gonna. It sounds stupid.
But I assume you're not allowed to do that any longer.
I would hope not.
Now, what's even crazier, if this hasn't been enough for you, so we're going to go back to our current chunk that we're, Donna's body being found.
Mm-hmm.
They also have several other unsolved murders that were similar to Donna's. That started March 1968.
But
so in March, 18-year-old Constance Marie Paris would be getting off a bus near her home and disappear. A few days later, her body would turn up in a debris-filled ditch. Then February 1970, 15-year-old Mary Lee Burt would disappear while walking to the Columbine County Club. Her nude body would be found the following day by a road crew. She had been raped and strangled. Then, December 1976, 16-year-old Holly Andrews would disappear, be found the next day, savagely raped, and then stabbed to death before being left to decompose in the woods.
I'm confused. I thought
in January 1980, 21-year-old Helene Pruzinski would vanish after working her intern job at the radio station. When she eventually was found, she was raped and stabbed 9 times in the back until she was dead. Now, mind you, all these ladies are in the same area. The cases were unsolved.
I thought he was in a different state in the 70s. So if those were found in 68, how can he be connected to any of that? If that just threw a monkey wrench in your plans.
It threw a monkey wrench in my plans because I'm just saying when they find Donna's body, it's also, they've got all these other cases that mind you, when I was doing this case, I also did the whole, I don't see anything similar compared to like the other cases I've done where it's like they find something that connects the crime scenes, like a cigarette butt or the dude that smashed into all the skulls. That other than them being raped and thrown off somewhere rural, I was like, I don't see a connection other than...
It's just a real bad area for women.
Right. Colorado seems to not be a very friendly state.
It's Dr. Quinn's fault.
The officers are doing the whole... They have all these other unsolved murders that go back to 68. Because I, too, did the whole 68. He's also even younger. So it's just like, not that it's not possible, but I was like, and also if maybe he's traveling back and forth, I don't know what drew him to Colorado to begin with.
Maybe he's got some family.
So I was thinking when he's on probation in Ohio and decides to move to Colorado, maybe he'd been going back and forth and he'd missed Colorado and finally got permission to go to Colorado. And maybe that's one reason he wanted to go back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But no, mind you, they're unraveling that. But mind you, they have all those ladies, again, same area, the cases are unsolved, and now they have the newest victim to be Donna. And now, mind you, when they were investigating when Donna was missing, they had talked to Kenyon since he was a neighbor.
Damn.
But the investigators would arrest him and bring him in for questioning. They would also take a peek into his criminal record and learn about the abduction 4 years earlier where he got probation. Now, mind you, the officers have their work cut out for them with placing Kenyon, because at this point, they're thinking he did all the murders, let alone placing him at all the scenes, but trying to put it together that he even killed Donna, because just because he was there doesn't mean... It's not like the officer saw him with a body. He just happened to be near where a body was found.
Right.
But they're trying to stick him with all 5 murders. And Kenyon would seize the opportunity to plead guilty to second-degree murder for Donna Wall. No charges would be brought on the other victims, even though everyone thinks that that's their guy. Now, Kenyon would say that he didn't do it and that the stakes were just too high, so he took a deal. And I'm just going to tell you, if they start talking to me for a murder, I'm not going to plead guilty to something I did not do because the stakes are too high.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to go, take me to court because I didn't fucking kill a person. That might be, I realize there are still people who are found guilty and are innocent.
Yeah.
But I'm not pleading guilty to shit.
I agree. I think of that the babysitter one that we did,
I thought of that one too.
because that lady was found guilty. Then medical stuff proved that she was actually innocent, but she still took the deal because the DA was still coming at her trying to get the charges again, and she risked more jail time. I just thought that was crazy. I would never, if I didn't do it, I guess it's different when you're in that situation, but
Yeah.
I'd like to think I wouldn't say I was guilty for something I didn't do.
Yeah. Now, even though he pled guilty, the prosecutor would shoot for the maximum of 24 years for him, but there wasn't any actual evidence to prove that Kenyon was even guilty of murder, so without him pleading, they had a tough thing going anyway. So the judge would sentence him to 10 years,
Oh.
and he would get out after serving 4.
Oh. That's awful. So is he
Yeah.
free?
He sure is.
Ew. I wonder what else he's been up to, or if he got his act together, to stop doing the murderings.
I can answer that for you.
Oh.
Because in August 1993, 14-year-old Chrissy Pamela Foster would disappear when she got off the bus.
Oh.
Then days later, her raped and stabbed body would be found with a shoelace tied tight around her throat. She'd been stabbed 13 times. Now, they would collect DNA, but unfortunately, just like we've done the last few cases, the 80s, 90s, they're still building that DNA database, so even though they're collecting it, they can't really do so much with it now. It's for future.
I hate those cases.
They collect everything, put it in the system, but they also have no suspect because nobody saw anything, and her case goes unsolved for over a year. Now then we're going to fast forward to 1994 when Kenyon is arrested for stalking a young woman. And thankfully at this point, DNA is a thing and he is required to submit a sample to be added to a state and federal database.
Hell yeah.
And ding, 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 it would come back to a DNA match collected at Chrissy's crime scene. And Kenyon would be arrested again. Now, he would be found guilty and sentenced to life without parole. He's currently 68 years old and living out his days in the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility. Now, it's been, at that point, 33 years after 16-year-old Holly Andrews was murdered. And in 2009, DNA would link a feller who would plead guilty for her murder, Ricky Lee Harnish, who is 54. Now, when he's arrested and sentenced, he gets no more than 24 years. And then in 2019, again, thanks to DNA and forensic genealogy and all the people looking for relatives and uploading their DNA profiles for this one, they made it possible to trace this feller's DNA back to collected at the crime scenes that link James Curtis Clanton to the murder of 20-year-old Helene Przinski. He ended up being sentenced and got life in prison.
Damn.
Which, by the way, that piece of shit was on parole after a rape charge in Arkansas when they picked him up for murder charges.
Ew. He's a gross person.
Yeah. And when he had served 4 years in jail for that, he was out on parole when he had murdered Helene. Now, I mention all that because I realize I thought they thought Kenyon, or they were trying to pin him with all the 5. That just means there were 4-ish, there were at least more than 3 men killing women in the same area of Colorado during a span of a couple years, just chunking their bodies in ditches. And my brain hole paused on that because they were trying to throw them all together just because they were half-naked ladies found in ditches, saying it was the same feller. But DNA says they were all these other fellers, which I thought was even worse than one really bad feller keep getting out of prison.
Yeah. All these fellers are on probation or parole or whatever, and they're going around raping and murdering girls and dumping them in the same area. What's that area again? Because I put that on my list if I'm not ever going there. I realize that it's way several decades later, but I'm just not going to go there. Where are we not going?
Well, the sad part is that Constant Marie Paris and Marley Burt, their cases are still unsolved. But I also I notated for you that the Helene, the 21-year-old Helene,
yeah,
that when she was killed, it was a Florida truck driver.
Oh.
So your theories with truckers being able to go drive in and drive out and there's no connection or anything.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was wild because I understand Kenyon. I do think he killed Donna. So him doing his whole he pled guilty and he didn't do it, I don't believe him. I think he stalked his neighbor and murdered her in some area and enjoyed going back and visiting her. I don't know that he fucked the body, but I think that even him going over there, he was reliving that experience.
Well, seeing as how he was raping them, then I'm going to say he at least was playing with his junk.
Yeah, probably so. But I think he did do that one. But I just thought it was crazy that they were trying, I don't want to say pin him with other murders he didn't do because he's still a piece of shit. But if they would have, they wouldn't have redone the DNA. And I realized it was like, what did I say, 33 plus years
Yeah.
after these gals were murdered. That's not justice anymore. I realize now they at least somebody is getting punished. But the one feller is 54 when he's arrested.
Yeah, that's not justice for her family, at least.
Oh, and who knows what else he was doing.
Yeah, that's really sick. And it's sad.
It is, but that's why I was just like, dude, there were several people just out there raping and murdering ladies.
We live in a really sick world. And people that think it's getting worse, they're just crazy. It's always been
bad. They just haven't done the reading.
Well, it's not even just that. It's just with social media and the easy access that it is to see all of the things and hear about them now, people are just more aware of it. But this shit has gone on since the dawn of time. People are just cruel, hateful, disgusting individuals. And it's sad. Keep your family close, protect your kids, and for the love of God, if you have a flat tire, drive away on your goddamn flat tire.
Well, I was trying to think of it because I did think of Bundy, how when like he would pretend to have an injury or whatever.
Yeah.
And that just somebody, and I'm thinking he's 20, so if a 20-year-old's like, hey, you got a flat, and you're outside of a mall or something, and there's other people around, and you go to look to see if you actually have a flat tire, and then before you know it, there's a gun in your face. Of that, I'd hate to say it, but I feel like I would have ended up doing the same thing. You got a flat, your instinct is to go look.
I forget which one of my kids were with me. I think it might have been the girls that were with me, and we were at Walmart, and I kind of park in the same area every time because it's easier to find my car. And there's one of those little median strips that separate out like the parking. You know what I'm talking about? Where they've got trees and bushes right there in the middle of the parking lot. Well, somebody popped up out of the bush while I was loading the groceries and the kids in the car because this is when the girls were little. And it scared the crap out of me because I didn't even see the person there. But they just popped up from behind the bush and were like, "You got any cash?" I was like, "No."
I've got groceries.
I literally chucked everything in the car. I left the cart right there.
Never got those eggshells out of the seat.
Got in my car and just drove off. And I drove to a different spot of the parking lot and then made sure the girls were in their car seats. But that scared me.
Yeah.
Man, probation and parole don't work. If you have a real criminal that wants to continue to commit crimes, they're just going to do it.
And really, how many times have we seen it when they get caught and they get in trouble, then they're on parole? They just learn that they have to murder somebody.
Right. Don't leave a witness.
I was just horrified that this was several different people of he tried to abduct somebody, got a shit sentence, then was allowed to move out of state, and I don't know if that was a motivation to he's not our problem and send him to Colorado, but it's just like even if, let's say, he didn't kill anybody prior to that Chrissy little lady, that he still was on a bad path and was getting shit for sentences.
He was. And this whole try again, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but...
Die again.
Throw the book at him. I think violent crimes, the rape, the kidnappings, the murderings, they shouldn't be given all these extra chances. I realize that people can learn a lesson, but it's stupid. Because what if it's the judge's family? If you're going to let this feller out, would you let him come around your family? Whether it be the repetitive drunk driver or just in general, your psychotic piece of shit that goes around stalking their neighbors, kidnapping them, raping them, murdering. Why? Why let them out? Don't let them out. Just execute them. Execute them all. Follow the rules or get executed. Done. Good thing it's not Andrea's dictatorship.
Yeah. Probably a good thing we don't live in that world. Good thing you're not a politician because you lost that election with this conversation. But again, my brain was just like baffled by if they tried to stick him with all the murders, they would not have run the DNA years later.
Well,
And then that means the other fellers wouldn't even be arrested. And then again, that this is a different feller who gets arrested 33 years later who was on parole for rape.
well, I got two things to say about that. They didn't charge him ever with those other crimes, so I
No,
wouldn't
they
say
were just convinced, which is what I thought was interesting, that like why police officers don't need to jump to
conclusions.
we got a serial killer.
Yeah.
But I realized it was on the end of the 70s and everybody was a serial killer.
Everybody
So-
was doing it.
So they just assumed we got one.
It turns out
they were
it wasn't just one, it was a whole bunch of them. Literally everybody was doing it.
Yeah, which blew my mind because when I first started doing it, because if you go back to older articles, like when he first gets arrested and he pleads guilty to Donna's murder, older articles will say that he remains the number one suspect in the other four. And it's not until like you find an article that's
More current.
past 2013 that he's not the number one suspect because hello DNA, you did good there, and all these fuckers got arrested. But it's just like, how crazy is that to think of all the people who never were caught because maybe DNA ended up not collected right and they couldn't run it, of that they never got caught or they stuck it to the wrong person and they were just free.
Well, that's where if they had stuck him with all those other cases, I bet he would have raised more of a stink. You would have gotten one of these bleeding heart groups that look into wrongful convictions, and he would have gotten a new trial on everything because they would have been able to prove at that point. You know what I mean? But without all that, yeah. What a shit show.
Yeah, but I knew you'd like that one.
I really like the DNA ones. I mean, it sucks for the victims' families, especially when it ends up being multiple victims throughout the years. And
oh yeah, they just pile on.
yeah, because
I'm just glad in the 80s and 90s they had the sense to collect it, even though they really couldn't do a whole lot with it.
yeah.
And I realized some of it, again, wasn't collected properly. So I know there's cases out there that they collected it, but it wasn't stored properly or it wasn't collected properly and it's contaminated for one reason or another and it's no good.
But they at least tried.
Yeah, but for the ones that this did solve things, it did capture people.
And even if it was done incorrectly, they really didn't know what they were collecting it for. It was just a fingers crossed that someday,
We can use that.
30, 40 years down the road, that they might be able to use this semen that we found in this victim, and hopefully we stored it correctly.
Can you imagine pitching that to the first round of officers? Just, I want you to take this swab. Excuse me?
Just seal it up nice. Keep it nice and pretty like.
Yeah.
It's wild. Technology is insane.
And when you think about it, it came a long way in a very short amount of time, but technology has from the 80s. So I don't even know if they had any concept of when they'd be able to use that or how, but it just was crazy to me. All of it was crazy to me. From the abduction, the fact that that fella ran out of the mall with a cork gun.
That guy's crazy.
He could have been shot dead. I'd like to know what his wife thought. They're just like, he just goes sprinting across the parking lot. Like, you know what? It was Sully.
So kind of funny that his last name was Husky, because he sounds like he's got a husky personality. Like very, let's not think it through. Let's just act. Very hyperactive. Get on it.
I know we can never know what would have happened, but I feel like she would have been dead.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like that's exactly what happened to Donna since she was abducted after, or we don't know if she was abducted. We just have to assume something happened since she disappeared after she left work. I would say it was probably the similar situation, parking lot. And really, when you think about it, he could have driven her car home or anything like that.
Yeah,
Because he was the neighbor. Nothing was suspicious about him being in the area.
that's true. It's gross. Don't trust your neighbors neither.
Don't trust anybody, because your family's more likely to be the one to do you in.
I'm glad you live in Alabama.
That's why I do. I'm safe here.
That's true. Her mother, she's got it out for me.
Hey, I survived childhood. I know she won't get me now.
She's right up the street from me. I didn't move far enough.
Well, that's your fault.
It is. It's my husband's fault now because he likes the
I
area.
done told you need to move down here.
I've seen your internet. It sucks, even if mine is the one being glitchy today.
I was going to say, it must have caught your cold. Your viruses, they've done spread.
It spread to the computer.
What'd you do with your mic?
Oh, that's not very nice of you, lady.
Okay, on that note, that's all I got.
Well, thanks for that.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.